In many ways, the church is no longer relevant to the world. One of the biggest denominations in South Africa has, over the past 30 years, declined by a third. So not only has it not been keeping up with population growth in our country, it's actually been going backwards. The biggest Protestant denomination in the United States have recently actually said that their biggest growth is from within. So meaning when their members have children, that's where they grow. They're not growing from the outside. And so the church is no longer reaching the outside world. It's no longer relevant to the outside world. And so what's the problem here? Is the problem our message? Is it that our message is outdated to the current world? Well, no. I think I need to just clarify that the Christian movement is growing. It is the movement that has never stopped growing. Over the past 2,000 years, that started with a handful of men, is now half of the population in the world is serving and surrendering to Jesus. And so the movement is still growing, yet some of our established churches are struggling to be relevant to the outside world. And so what's the problem? You see, the message is not the problem. Jesus, the gospel, the reality that Jesus has raised from the dead and he is offering us new life, that is a relevant message always. It is the most sellable message that you can imagine. And so that's not really the problem. So where is the problem? Let me also just say this. When I say the church, I'm speaking about ordinary Christians like you and I. Maybe ask yourself that question. Am I still relevant to the world around me? And I think the problem is so oftentimes that in church we're so happy to just do our own thing, to connect with God. Sometimes it's as if we are overly focused on our own experience and our own connection, our own relationship with God, that we in some way start losing our relevance. We might say, well, that sounds completely wrong. Can a Christian ever be too focused on his own relationship with God? Well, in some ways, yes. Let me just quickly explain it this way. You see, Jesus, no one was more in tune than Jesus with his relationship with his Father. You see, his vertical connection was stronger than any of ours. But his vertical connection always had a horizontal outflow. It resulted in a horizontal connection. It's as if Jesus' worship time wasn't only when he was praying to his Father. His time of worship was when he was serving people around him, when he was reaching out to people around him. That was the way that Jesus also worshiped the Father. And that's the healthy way to do it. And so if you're only concerned about your own time, and as churches, if we're only concerned about what we're doing together and how we worship together and how things should be for us in church, we will lose our relevance to the world. And we won't be following in the footsteps of Jesus, who had a clear focus on people. And so the question we need to ask ourselves is do we have faith for our neighbors? Have we maybe lost our faith for the world? I think many Christians, we don't doubt the fact that we have faith for ourselves, that Jesus is the answer for my life. But do you still believe that Jesus is the answer for your neighbor? And we know the biblical explanation of neighbors is everyone. It's the person staying next to you and also the people you don't know. It's your colleagues at work. It's your family members. It's even those people that you don't like, or the people that you don't really have hope for. Do you still have faith for them? Or have you lost your faith for your neighbors? There's a story, and so if you're asking the question, what should Christianity look like? What should the church look like? Well, there's a beautiful picture of what church should be in a real practical sense in John chapter 4, where Jesus meets the Samaritan woman. And we know this story. We spoke about this story even in last week's talk, where he meets this woman and she has an encounter with Jesus. She puts her faith in Jesus and he changes her world completely. She comes to him full of shame and guilt because she's already had 5 husbands and now she's living with a 6th. So she doesn't feel qualified, yet Jesus sees her. Jesus reaches out to her. He's busy with the work of his Father. He's busy worshiping the Father by reaching out to this lady. And she finds faith for herself. But then it doesn't stop there. And so I think I'm going to read it to you, but I think for many of us, if we look at some ways in which we do church, is we just want to have that worship session with Jesus right there at the well and spend the whole night just talking to Jesus. But what true faith does, it moves you to your neighbors. This is what happens in that story. After this meeting that this lady had with Jesus, in John 4, verse 28, the woman left her water jar beside the well and ran back to the village, telling everyone, "Come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could he possibly be the Messiah? Could he be your answer also? He's been my answer. Can he be your answer also?" So the people came streaming from the village to see him. You see, her connection with God immediately moved her to connect with her neighbors, to connect with other people. Her faith in God, that she could put her faith for her life in him, moved her toward those around her, saying, well, I've got faith that he can be your answer also. The story goes on, verse 39. Many Samaritans from that village believed in Jesus because the woman had said, he told me everything I ever did. And then those people came and saw for themselves, and they met Jesus. She had faith for her neighbors. So I've got a simple question for you today. Do you have faith for your neighbors? Do you believe it's possible that what Jesus did for you, that it's possible that he can do that for someone that you know that might not be interested in God at this moment? Someone that you might perceive as being very far away from God. You see, if you know my story, you would know that I associate with this woman in many ways. I am the woman at the well. And I met Jesus, and he was living water to me. The things that the world could never fill in my life, Jesus filled in my life. And I've said this many times whenever I preach, that if Jesus could save me, then he can save anyone. And this lady, she understood that if he can change her life, surely he can change many other people's lives also. I want to invite you, just as a bit of an action step right now. Can you maybe think of a neighbor that you might have lost a bit of faith for? Maybe there's someone that you just think that person is so far away from God. There's no chance that person will ever, go to church. Maybe you should start praying for that person. That guy or that girl that you reckon is so far away from God. Why won't you do something practical right now? Pray for them and say, Jesus, I know, if you changed my life, I know that you can change that person's life also. And as you start praying for your neighbors, may God come and restore your faith for the world. May he give you faith for your neighbors. Bless you. Hey, if you enjoy our content, why don't you do us a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, share it to your friends, and also ring the bell that we can keep on serving you in this way.